The Trump DOJ's bungled, probably illegal response to the law requiring the release of the Epstein files is back in the news tonight because of Republicans who are not taking AG Pam Bondi or Trump at their word, essentially. A committee just hours ago voting to subpoena Attorney General Bondi. 5 Republicans voted yes. They didn't even stall or say, with everything going on in the world, we need a few more weeks. No, this is barreling back at the Trump DOJ. It's one day after lawmakers also dialed up the heat and requested new interviews from 7 others implicated in the case from the files that have come out. Mind you, a lot of these people were in the files that the DOJ had for years because they're old files. It's only the public disclosure that's putting on the heat. There's new reporting that tens of thousands of documents have also been removed, that is to say withheld or possibly illegally hidden by the DOJ. CBS has been combing through this. They found about 65,000 pages were there and removed. The Wall Street Journal reports it's about 47,000 total files if you're counting the original file metric. The DOJ says they're actually under review and they could be ready for reproduction by the end of the week. Remember, all of this was on a legal deadline that they broke. Then they came in late. Then they pulled it back. At a minimum, this is a bungled, failed process of the transparency that Donald Trump ran on back in 2024 and a law that he signed. And at most, it may be an illegal cover-up. Lawmakers have been demanding the documents.
The DOJ wants to say they're done with this document production. The problem is they've taken down documents.
There is zero reason why Pam Bondi and the DOJ right now are withholding those documents unless they don't want us to see them, and they're essentially part of this cover-up.
I think that the Department of Justice has been in a cover-up mode for many months.
That's the pressure. We are joined by New York Times opinion writer Molly Jong-Fast and law professor Melissa Murray. Professor Murray, this is real pressure with Republicans joining in, whatever their motivations. What do you see happening tonight?
So I think there's a lot going on here. The fact that Boebert and Mace are involved in this, and Mace really led the charge here. I mean, these are 2 of the women in the Republican caucus who have been really vociferous about their complaints, their grievances with Mike Johnson's leadership and with the president and with the handling of this particular matter. And they really brought it. And this was after Attorney General Pamela Jo Bondi said that she would actually be willing to brief the committee on this. And they're like, nope, we're going to stay and we're going to have an actual subpoena, which would force a closed-door deposition, which would mean that Attorney General Bondi probably would not be able to engage in the kind of Real Housewives theatrics that we've seen in her other congressional testimony. This would be a much more focused inquiry, real questions, and she wouldn't be able to fall back on some of those talking points that she's done in past testimony.
Molly, I want to kind of turn to you on the existential part of this. Right. People say, what is reality? Does anything matter?
Right.
People look at Trump, who's gotten away with certain things, and they say maybe nothing matters, or it's naive and cute that you even think that anything's going to come out. And yet, a lot of documents have come out, and then the ones they were hiding and messing up on their cover-up got caught relatively quickly because we still have some working journalists and investigators and whatnot. And so I'm curious where you put this on the nothing matters spectrum, because as I've emphasized, and it's worth noting, even Republicans putting the heat on Bondi this week.
Yeah, no, look, the Nancy Mace thing is big, and I talked to a member of Oversight who said that she really led the charge in this. And you have to remember, these women in the House are really, really mad at Mike Johnson, okay? We saw a lot of reporting about this. They have been really mistreated. They feel they've been marginalized. And what we're seeing is real blowback here. So I actually think this really does matter. And every time that these people testify, like these hearings, like remember when Les Wexner testified, he implicated Trump, right? He said, Trump came to the fashion show and I didn't understand why. And so every time you do this, it's a risk for these Republicans who are trying to make this go away.
And then, and this goes to, the problem with narratives? They're simplified and usually false.
Yes.
So there's a narrative that Republicans let Trump get away with everything. And that happens. And then people think if you disagree with that narrative, you're letting them off the hook or you're minimizing the problem. But that's a problem over here if you believe in oversight, which is in the Constitution.
Right.
And yet at the same time, on this issue especially, they not only overruled him and passed the law, veto-proof, but some, not all, but some of them are saying, no, we passed this law, you have to comply with it.
And I also think, if you're talking about narrative, it sure seems like this DOJ is trying to cover up. And, it's almost like the cover up has become bigger than the possible crime.
Well, it always becomes bigger than the possible. I mean, I think what's really striking here is that you had this law passed. One of the critiques of the law was that there weren't really penalties for noncompliance. And we saw all of the issues with the redactions, the foot dragging, with releasing the papers, the different tranches of documents that were released. And many people noted it was really up to Congress to hold the administration's feet to the fire when it came to this, because there weren't teeth in the statute itself. And now they're actually doing it.
But one of the things when you talk to victims, and remember, there are so many of these survivors, and they're really all together now, and they're talking for the first time ever, and they have this list that Thomas Massie has of 250 people, is that they're like, where are my 302s? Right. They know what they told the FBI, and now they're like, well, that should be in the tranche of files, so where are they?
Yeah, and that speaks to, again, the actual mechanics of a cover-up this large are difficult. To that end, you say, oh, is it in Watergate, the cover-up took on a life of its own. Here's your obligatory Watergate reference between Bondi and one of the Republicans, Massie, who has pushed back on this. Take a look.
Any victim who comes forward, of course, we would love to hear from them. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Did you ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did you talk about Epstein?
I am reclaiming my time. I'm glad you're asking about Merrick Garland.
You don't get to reclaim time
this is
when you
bigger than Watergate.
When I don't answer a question the way you
goes
want.
over 4 administrations. You don't have to go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
The girls are fighting. What else can you say?
But he's right, and it's a nonpartisan issue. It's every administration, and I talked to Maria Farmer, and remember, she came to the FBI in the 1990s, and she said they hung up on her, and she said, she was vindicated because they released her report.
Well, I mean, it is something that goes back over multiple administrations. Like, that is clear, and that exchange shows it. But it comes down to this particular attorney general who was charged with releasing the files, redacting them in a responsible way. And as the victims continue to note, these redactions are shambolic in many ways, preserving the anonymity of certain individuals, but leaving the victims themselves wide open to public scrutiny. And so that does seem like something the attorney general should answer for, whether it is in open court or here in this particular congressional setting.
We've seen 43, the Wall Street Journal had 43 victims whose names and sometimes their addresses were in these files. And these are women who have had a lot of abuse from the internet and have really gone through a lot of targeting, even despite the fact that they are victims.